Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I believe we're starting a new section today. Just a short one. And I think just before we get going on that, I was just going to go back to a question we had about the 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. Just take another look at that. There's a number of different ways that one can look at that, and I don't know there isn't any particular way that our opinion on it that's right. They all have merit, and some of the explanations were expressed last week. Some of the other kind of passages that use it, if we're looking at it as a figure of speech, 7 even 8 or 3 even 4 kind of thing. There's several passages that kind of use that same figure of speech. In Job 5:19, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. Proverbs 6:16 uses it, these 6 things doth the Lord hate, these 7 are an abomination to him. It's kind of a figure of speech indicating abundance, like this is full and overflowing kind of thing. Also Proverbs 30:18, there be 3 things which are too wonderful, yea 4 which I know not. Ecclesiastes 11, give a portion to 7 and also to 8. And then Amos 1 verse 3, and that occurs actually in several places in Amos. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus and for 4. So with all the burdens of the various nations that he was talking about, this was the figure of speech he used for 3, even for 4. In other words, the cup is full and overflowing, and it's ready to do something about. So Micah 5:5 has a little bit of that to it. There's raised against them 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. In other words, there'll be an abundance and overflowing amount of leaders that will be raised against him in that day. That it could be taken in that sense. If we want to micro-focus in on it a little bit more and say, well, what are these shepherds and what are the 8 principal men? That's kind of where we come in into using the numbers as a symbol of 7 is a symbol of completeness, and 8 is a symbol of a new complete and actually starting over again kind of thing. So there's that to it. There's an interesting, I think it's Clark has an interesting little dialogue on that. And let's use this, stand this out here. Says 8 principal men, or 7 shepherds. It says, supposed to mean the 7 Maccabees, Mattathias and his 5 sons, Hyrcanus the son of Simon. And this was when the Assyrian would come. It relates to the subversion of the Assyrian Empire. The 8 princes, the Asmonean race, beginning with Aristobulus and ending with Herod, who was married to Mariam. And he says, Calmet considers this as referring to the invasion of Judea by Cambyses, when the Lord raised up against him 7 magi. He of them who passed for king of the Persians was Smerdis of Herodotus, the Orospasis of Trogus, the Artaxerxes of Ezra. These magi were put to death by 7 Persian chiefs, who, having delivered the empire from them, set one of themselves, Darius, the son of Hystaspas, upon the throne. So it's got perhaps an application even to the immediate sense of the prophecy, which was the judgment against the Assyrians and their and those who succeeded them. The deliverance of the nation from them. So there's various ways it can be looked at.
It does seem to be a figure of speech, though.
And and like I say, you can micro focus in on it and take all the symbols and everything, but as long as you don't get too too dogmatic in some of those things. I think basically it's a figure of speech more than anything else. Okay, so we'll go on to verse 20 of chapter 14.
Did you start your camp studio there?
I did. I think I did. Better check here. Yeah, I think it's one. Thanks. Okay, so this has 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 is without the city, defined by the boundaries. The term, I should say here, the term without the city is defined by the boundaries of the city. So before we can figure out what he means by without the city, or what the Revelator means by without the city, we have to define what the city is. I think that's pretty. And I guess I should read the verse here first. The winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress even under the horse bridles by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Now this section deals with that part of the verse called the horse even under the horse bridles. This first line, the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress even under the horse bridles. The next section, 14, will deal with the 1,600 furlongs. So going on then to the title of paragraph 2, talks about the blood to the horse bridles, which refers to the rulers and commanders, and the fact that they do not escape the judgments. And the bridle of a horse is usually what steers the horse. So it's whatever is at the head of the tool of warfare. Paragraph 3, man's very best tools of war are rendered ineffective by divine judgments. We'll just take a glimpse here at the expositor on that verse. Verse 20. And the winepress was trodden without the city. It says, compare with verse 8. The judgment will extend to nations outside the apocalyptic limits of Babylon the Great. And blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles. The judgment will reach unto the ones guiding the horse, to the rulers of the nations. See notes on Revelation 6, where Rome is likened to a horse, and the riders are on to those who guided its destiny. The horse in Bible symbology represents the nations in warlike aspect. And he refers us to Zechariah 10 and 5, which I have a link to there. And they shall be as mighty men which tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets in the battle. And they shall fight because the Lord is with them, and the riders on horses shall be confounded. In other words, those who steer the horse direction of the horse will be confounded. And also in the 18th verse of chapter 19 of Revelations, that ye may eat the flesh of kings and the flesh. Let me just get some context here. I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. So again, that symbolism comes through in that verse also, of them that sit on the horses. Haggai 2:22, I don't have a link to that, but it's the same idea, referring to those who direct the horses and the action of the horses. The rest of it will be in the next section, talking about this 1,600 furlongs. Paragraph 1. Without the city is defined by boundaries of the city. The winepress of divine wrath is trodden without the city, or outside the city. That is, the fearful judgments to be manifested will not be confined to the 10-streeted Babylon, which is geographically bounded by the Rhine, the Danube, and the Euphrates, the English Channel, and the Atlantic. I think bit of a boundary here. Yeah. Basically, this is what it's speaking about, this section in yellow. So you have the Rhine, the Danube, Euphrates starts up here and kind of comes down here, so you're actually looking at the north-south part of the Euphrates, which marks the boundary there at the east end of what is now Turkey, and then of course the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and the English Channel. That's what he refers to as the city. That's the chemistry of the city. So once you define the city, then we kind of can know what is meant by the area outside of that. These are the extensive regions beyond or without these limits, equally obnoxious to the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. Without the city, there is Germany, in its largest sense, styled by Ezekiel Magog, upon which said Adonai Yahweh, I will send a fire. This Magog, or land of Magog, will include Prussia, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Russia, and Poland. Without the city are them that dwell carelessly in the isles, among whom the fire is to be sent also. These isles will include the dominions of Great Britain, that may not obey the proclamation in mid-heaven commanding obedience to the King of Israel. Now note that even though he's talking about Russia and Magog and Gog, who are destroyed by basically the power of those areas are destroyed by the first battle, Armageddon, they're still a territory, and there are still people there, and judgments will still have to come on them in the finishing up of the divine wrath. That's what he's referring to here. Without the city, also, there are Canada and its sister provinces, the United States, Mexico, all South America, the Chinese Empire, Central Asia, Persia, Arabia, Abyssinia, and Egypt. All these countries, which include what Daniel styles the rest of the beasts, in chapter 7 and 12, the lion, the bear, the leopard, are all to be visited with the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God, which results in taking away their dominion, though not in extinguishing their political existence, which continues for a season and a time, or 1,000 years. He refers us there to chapter 7 and 12 of Daniel, talking about all these countries. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. And the expositor on that says, the rest of the beasts, this implies that the other beasts were not completely destroyed by the fourth beast, but only absorbed by it. After the fourth beast is destroyed, and it will extend its influence over all the other realms at the time of the end, the subordinate powers will recover their independence and national identity. As such, by the ultimatum that will issue forth from the King in Zion, they will be invited to submit to his authority and rule. That's the proclamation in heaven. And then, of course, the other part of that is those that don't will have to be subjected to these judgments. That's pretty much what's relevant to what we're studying there right now. As far as the lives being prolonged, the Chaldean original of this clause is given in the margin. A prolonging of life was given them. The destruction of the fourth beast, the Russian Catholic Confederacy of the last days, will be followed by the extension of Christ's rule throughout the earth. This was symbolized by the image seen by Nebuchadnezzar. It was first broken to pieces together by the divine stone, and afterwards ground to powder and carried away as the stone grew into a mountain. As Christ's kingdom extends throughout the earth, the supervision of cities and nations will be placed in the care of his immortalized associates. However, the nation and kingdom that shall not serve thee shall perish, yet those nations shall be utterly wasted. All these countries outside of the area classified as the city, all these are cast into the great winepress of the wrath of God, when, having destroyed the great city of 10 kingdoms in a threefold dominion of the seventh vial, they are trodden in the judgments of the winepress without the city, or outside of the city. So, summarizing that is just saying that Yahweh's judgments on the nations will be very broad, inclusive of all nations of the world, north, south, east, west. None will escape. In this paragraph, there is also a description of that which forms the boundary of the great city, in effect the 10 toe kingdoms of Daniel's prophecy, in order that it may be understood which countries are included in the phrase without the city. You remember when we were studying about the French Revolution, it was the street of the city, one of the streets of the city that was affected, which was France. It wasn't the whole city, but one of the streets of the city. Features.
Would they be the clay nations? Because I read one of Brother Thomas's pamphlets, and he spoke about the clay nations judgment coming after the iron was subdued or something to that effect.
Probably, yeah. Gordon?
Well, I would think that the clay generally would refer to humanity, whereas the iron would be probably the authority side of man's
Rome
government. Yeah, which is the authority figure.
The fourth beast.
Yeah. The judgments, if I understand it right, maybe I don't, but seem to start more outside without the city, and then at last finish up within the boundaries. Is that right? Or is that the way you see it? Because
I'm not sure about the progression of it, but you're right there.
Well, if Babylon the Great is the last to fall, and some of those verses refer to that, to the calling the birds to feast on the carcass, and that's a reference to the after the destruction of Babylon the Great, which is the Holy Roman Empire, basically. I think, if I understand it right, and that's the last thing to be put down, isn't it? They're the toughest to put down.
Yeah.
But they won't withstand. But the focus seems to be.
He speaks of nations remaining after the destruction of the fourth beast, but that simply refers to the existence of political entities in the kingdom age, I think.
I've always thought it was kind of the grassroots movement of the support of the beast.
Yes.
As opposed to the head organization. There'll still be a desire among people fighting against Christ and trying to stand up for the beast. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's kind of how I've always viewed it.
Anything else?
I don't know if you got the latest Worldwide Watch or.
I mean, I'll load that one up. We'll see what I got here.
It's not directly connected, but you can't hardly help but be connected with this. But
I got the 26th.
Yeah, there's another one.
Yeah. I didn't load this week's.
In this last one, he's talking about Putin being restored, and he goes into the original word there where it seems to indicate a restoration of the autocrat or the king of the north. He figures this is a fulfillment of that, and this probably indicates that Putin is that autocrat, and of course that connects with without the city. I mean, because Russia is mentioned as one of the components of the without the city.
Right.
You noticed in that one, a little bit before this, it sort of divided Germany off from the rest?
He talks about Germany. Without the city, there is Germany in its largest sense, styled by Ezekiel Magog, which is the Gogian host, I think. Yeah. I guess if we take a look at that.
Gog is the leader. Magog's.
Yeah, he's kind of talking about this whole area, I think.
Wouldn't some of present day Germany be inside that boundary though? Like in the yellow? There'd be some of it that would be, wouldn't there?
There is just a little bit, I think. I don't know if I got, here's Germany, comes down here, and we've got Belgium there. So again, if you go, just kind of hold that. See, I think it's pretty much bounded by the Rhine there. So.
Well, didn't the Rhine divide the east and west of the war?
I'm
not sure about that.
Think so. I think that was further to the east. Talking about the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was further to the east. I'm not an expert on that, so I don't know.
No, I'm not.
It doesn't really matter anyway.
No.
I mean, sooner or later they're all going to fall under the judgment.
I've got it. Let's see if I've got it. Let's see if I can bring up that what you were talking about there. And the worldwide launch here.
I mean, I don't know that it's that important, but at the same time, it kind of does. It's another step.
Yeah.
Established, if he's right.
Still takes a little time.
He's mentioned that before, hasn't he, about Putin getting back
Yeah.
and being restored.
Which one was it? Now you want the latter profile here?
No,
Return.
first one.
Return. I'll show you first, I guess.
He gives the meaning of his names.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand Russian.
There.
The first one here?
Yeah, the first one.
Okay.
That's where he gives it. He's got three names.
Okay. You're looking at the comment here, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gives the meaning of his names. Somewhere.
Okay, I see, yeah. As the above article points out, Russia will turn its back to its anti-West ways under Putin. The remarkable thing is this. The Bible predicted that Gog, a Russian leader, would be restored prior to the invasion of Israel. Ezekiel 38 says, I, God, will turn thee back. This is normally translated as, I will restore thee, or I will return thee. Jeremiah 27:22, it speaks of the Jews being taken captive into Babylon, but God then says, I will restore them to this place. Same word as in Ezekiel 38. Putin has been restored to his place. That of president and ruler, or prince of Magog, Meshach, and Tubal. Each one of these places is in modern Russia. We have surely witnessed this week fulfillment of an exact and detailed prophecy written 2,500 years ago.
That's not where I want to speak of his name.
But I think it's maybe
That might be in the next one, is
next
it?
one, yeah.
Yeah,
Chief pronunciation.
the profile. You know, Putin means
I
the
was
way.
surprised that he had so much money. I'd never heard that.
Interesting, Putin's own name indicates this, that is, he's ruler Magog, all these are ancient names. For Russia, someone who sees himself as great and powerful. Interesting, Putin's own name indicates this. Vladimir means to rule with greatness or even master of the universe. Putin means the way. We can combine to read the way to be master of the universe or the world. In fact, Putin has used very similar words in a recent speech when he accused America of being boss of the planet. This is something that Putin himself aspires to. We are told that he would prosper and would be deceitful. Both of these attributes are mentioned above. Putin declares to only be worth 150,000. In fact, he's worth 40 billion. He has won this election through fraud and deceit. You surely go. Very possible, you know.
It's his
It's
interpretation.
an opinion, yeah.
On the news today, there's such an uprising,
Yeah.
Russia over the election.
I think he's certainly a person there for a man for the purpose, whatever that purpose is. I know that, Christians have identified certain men before as being the one, but that has not always turned out to be the case, so we have to be a little careful. But anyway, it's interesting. Yeah. Let's see, get back to our presentation here. There we go. Okay, paragraph 2 talks about blood to the horse bridles, referring to the rulers and commanders and the fact they do not escape the judgments. The reader may easily conceive what an immense shedding of blood is implied by such a vintage as this. It is the supper of the great God, prepared for the fowls of the heaven, who fill themselves with the flesh of horses and of them that sit upon them. The phrase oceans of blood, as expressive of the quantity shed in these extensive warlike operations of the saints or angel of the sickle, would hardly be an exaggeration. The blood which flows from the downtrodden enemies of the nations is represented as ascending to the bridles of the horses for 1,600 furlongs. This, taken literally, would be about 5 feet deep and 200 miles long. But how broad, we are left to imagine. But as the literal is only symbolical of the real in this most ingeniously devised prophecy, we need only inquire what is signified by the phrase came out of the winepress, even unto the bridles of the horses. The winepress judgments being identical with the supper of the great God, which consummates the binding of the dragon in the abyss, the terms of the one are expletive of the terms of the other. Hence the more concise phrase, the bridles of the horses, is interpreted by the words in chapter 19, verse 18, the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, of them that hold the bridle. Thus the word bridle comes to represent the rider of the horse. Blood does not flow from the horses only, but from the fierceness of the wrath. But the fierceness of the wrath falls also upon the bridlemen, or bridles, who govern and maneuver them in battle. It comes even unto them. So that rather than an indication of death, when it says even unto the horse bridles, it's signifying that they're not exempt. The ones who are riding a horse and driving it and guiding it are not exempt from these judgments. It will reach even to them. So horses can here be understood to refer to the tools of warfare, and bridle to the commanders and departments that order, guide, manage them in the execution and prosecution of the battle. So even the heads of state. Gordon?
In many ways, that there'd be a greater responsibility on them, wouldn't there?
Sure.
You know, because they're the ones that are calling the shots.
Horses are just doing what they're told.
Yeah.
Because
I was talking to Grace yesterday. We were speaking about all these disasters. And I said, well, I thought it was part of, says judgment is a fire. What will I if it be already kindled? So these disasters that perhaps they fall on the innocent, the children, and those that know not God. Well, or if it is on those that know them, they'll be raised.
You know, these terrible things that happen can fall under two headings. I mean, there is the time and chance that happens, and then there are things that the same kinds of things can be directed by God in specific judgments, and sometimes we don't know beforehand which it is. You know.
So it will use natural disasters to subdue the nations, possibly.
Well, I think that's very true. Yeah. You know, the earthquakes, for example, will have tsunamis. I mean, they're just recalling the first anniversary of the terrible things that happened in Japan. And it's just mind-boggling to see that again. You know, it's the power of God that, like I say, it can happen in just a time and chance kind of thing, or it can be directed by Him. And certainly, I think at the time of the end, at the time that we're reading about here, it will be. Gordon?
Well, we were just talking about Putin. I mean, he'd be one of the ones sitting at the bridle, as a bridle on the horse, right. You might say. So, you know, it may indicate that he'll perish. Well, he will eventually, unless is it.
Or whoever is in that place.
Yeah.
And in paragraph 3, he talks about how that man's very best that he can bring to the contest, the very best tools of war are rendered ineffective when, you know, confronted by the divine power. And that's just a little bit of what we're talking about. It says, the armies within and without the city have large cavalry contingents in which the kings and mighty of the nations pride themselves greatly. The governments, however, without the city can bring more cavalry into the field than those within it. In the constitution of the Asiatic armies, it so preponderates as to be a characteristic. This is illustrated in chapter 9, verse 16. Take a look at that. 9, verse 16, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. This is within the city, I think this would refer to. No, without the city. That was judgment. That was activities that were taking place outside of the city. But in any case, it says, a horse is a vain thing for safety, neither shall he deliver any by his great strength. Psalm 33:17. This will be found to be true in the time of this terrible vintage, when Judah and Israel, as the angel's sickle, shall tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets in the battle, because Yahweh is with them. The riders on horses that bridles shall be ashamed. Zechariah 10 and 5. In that day, saith Yahweh, I will smite every horse with terror, and his rider with madness, and every horse of the peoples with blindness. He refers us there to Zechariah 10 and 5 first. They shall be as mighty men which tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets of the battle, shall fight because the Lord is with them, and the riders of horses on horses shall be confounded. And I will strengthen the house of Judah. I will save the house of Joseph, and I will bring them again to place them, for I will have mercy, for I have mercy upon them. So it's definitely, and then he talks about Ephraim, so that the whole of Israel is being brought into this, and the ultimate, of course, coming out of that is their redemption as a nation. And then talks about chapter 12, verse 4, he quotes from, in that day I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. So again, Judah is being brought into the equation as a part of the judgments upon them. And then referring to Israel, with thee, O Israel, I will break in pieces the horse and his rider. That's Jeremiah 51, verse 21. Talks about thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and of course then quote that verse. And Haggai 2:22, which I think was the passage that was in the expositor that we were looking at, that we didn't go to. The horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. Haggai 2:22. I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen. And I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. So that is indicating almost like a civil confusion. So that's just another one of the ways that judgments will come on them. What a terrible visitation will this be upon a cavalry force. The horses all terror-stricken, and therefore wild and utterly unmanageable, rushing against and kicking each other in fury and blindness. This alone would be fearful, but the horror is increased by the multitude of mounted and dismounted bridlemen in the melee, being all smitten with madness, so that the bridles of the horses are useless in their hands. In other words, confusion at the heads of state. In this way, the fierceness and wrath of the deity comes out even to the bridles of the horses. What is not consummated by this mutually destructive mass of infuriate flesh, Israel will be on hand to finish. As the fowls of the heaven, they will devour them, and their sword will be filled with their flesh. So, by virtue of the very nature of the war effort that will be required and expected in order to overcome this tenacious opponent, which many will look on as the Antichrist, the very best of man's war resources will be brought to bear upon the enemy, and the defeat of all such is thus prophesied to be complete and extreme. And horses, of course, was the most modern type of tool for fighting warfare at the time that this revelation was given. And so it is, I think, is symbolic of the same at the time of the end. It won't be literal horses, but they're figuring about the machinery of war, the very latest, modern, very best that man can bring against it.
The atomic bomb.
Yeah. But it'll be applied in confusion.
There's enough of it now.
Well, we talked about this before, but if most of these modern, the best of weapons rely very heavily on
guidance,
electronic guidance, satellite positioning, GPS, and all that. All you need to do is shut that down. You've got confusion from that alone, and then of course those that rely on that, their tools are not working, so then they get panicked. Like nothing works right. It might even turn back on themselves. Who knows?
Did you hear that about the sun's flares stuff and the GPS and
That's actually on that,
yeah.
well, I watched the
Mhm.
last one about the sun, extreme sun flares, supposed to, and they can take out the satellites. I mean, it can literally fry them.
The computers.
Well, anything depends on,
And the last one.
the last one, yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Let's see if we can go to Thursday.
So massive solar flare will hit Earth on Thursday, bringing with it the threat of power and GPS blackouts, but also improving the chance of seeing the northern lights. The burst of charged particles, which has been released by the sun and is rushing towards Earth, is the biggest since August, and comes as the sun begins the most active stage of its 11-year cycle. Prior to the August flare, the sun had not erupted with such magnitude since December 2006, before it entered a 5-year period of relative calm. Cloud of particles will begin reaching the Earth at about midday on Thursday and should last until Friday, but could be followed by further bursts, experts said. And the comment on this is that Britain could be facing another 18 months of potentially disrupted power grids, satellites, and flights during a few rough years of space weather, according to a leading expert. Space scientist Maggie Adder-Pocock said there could be another 5 or 6 major incidents in the coming months where the sun emits massive amounts of matter. Experts speculate there could be power blackouts, GPS disruption, and huge disturbance to flights. Professor Alan Woodward of the University of Surrey's computing department said a massive flare during the Olympics this summer would have the potential to be catastrophic. He said, as the 2012 Olympics approach, we have a convergence of an event that is the most connected, computer-intensive event ever, with a record level of sunspot activity, which typically leads to solar flares. Jesus said there would be signs in the sun, moon, and stars before he returned. We may see much more of these literal signs in the sun the closer we get to his return. And he quotes from that passage from Luke.
This was last Thursday, like 3 days ago, right?
Mm.
Yeah. There was, I don't know if there's any connection to it. Friday, the TV was on in the house, and it went really weird, like it doesn't normally go, and kind of blocks of different parts of different pictures. Whether that had anything to do with it, I haven't done that before.
Very likely.
Yeah.
You're talking about the sunburst or something, so
Yeah.
yeah. Just disrupting the download. Like
Yeah.
the digital can't keep up because it's not flowing smoothly.
Well, it's a field that sort of wraps around the Earth, or I guess in this case, I'm kind of glancing off it to one side a little bit, but it's a whole other field of electronic impulses.
Power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is more powerful than
Yeah.
the satellite can receive or put out, because those TV feeds come off the satellite.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Can I just maybe summarize what these 3 paragraphs are saying? Make
Sure.
sure I got it right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the wine press was trodden above the city, and the blood came out of the wine press into the horse's bile. That's part of the talking about, right?
Yeah.
So the wine press was trodden without the city. Without the city meaning the area that was not linked with the 4th beast of Daniel 7. It was the other beast that we're talking about here, which happens after Christ has established himself, but not in ultimate dominance, during the time of putting down of the other nations. And let's see what else here. So the location of the city is outside of the dominion of the 4th beast, which is outside of the dominion of the full Roman Empire.
the location of the outside of the city,
Right.
the city itself is the dominion of the fourth beast.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's outside of the fourth
Outside of
beast
that.
area.
Yeah.
So that's where we're talking about Asia and things like
Mhm.
that.
Asia and South America and Africa, and East Asia and all of that.
And those that have the horses by those are those that lead that entity, these other beasts of Daniel 7:12, I think it is. Is that the right understanding of
Those
this?
who are in power,
Yeah.
from the top down.
Right.
There'll be the generals in the field, but there'll be the president and the prime ministers and right to the very top. All have control.
And this is after the fourth beast has already been put down, if I understand it right. It's Daniel 7:11 talks about the fourth beast being put down, and this is after other beasts that remain, which is the time after the fourth beast primarily has been put down. The grassroots of the fourth beast is still there. But is that?
I think this is kind of referring to the putting down of the fourth beast and that it reaches out beyond that. At the same time, and when it's all done, when the fourth beast is done, and when all the nations and without the city have been subdued, then there will still be remaining. The nations will remain as political entities subdued to go into the millennium. I think that's kind of what he's talking about, those that remain after it goes into the millennium and they exist in 1,000 years.
This is not the putting down of the other beast, and this is still kind of putting down the fourth beast?
It's, putting down of the fourth beast and all those that are affiliated with it, which are its merchants, all the merchants that it is catered to, which really is all the rest of the people.
Both the fourth beast and the other beast? Talking about
Yeah.
both.
Even after the Roman Empire is subdued, the Catholic Church is spread with this political entity, spread all over the earth. No.
Mm-hmm. So we have to look at this verse 20 as part of all that, verse 17 through to 20, which is all referring kind of to the same kind of thing. And what all it's saying here is that it's not confined to the city. It also goes without the city. That's what this last part is telling us. Yeah.
This is during, like, after the Mid-Heaven Proclamation. This is
Yes.
during that time period where Christ is already
Yeah.
well known in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe identified as, will be identified as the Antichrist, and these are, I guess, the remaining surges against him.
Right.
Right.
So I guess our time is up. Gordon, we'll take one more comment here.
Well, this isn't it's all connected, but I mean, it's just kind of interesting to watch President Obama. It seems like he's coming around more to be a supporter of Israel. If what I've seen is representative of what he really thinks, you never know with politicians. But
Well, I think he always was a supporter of Israel, but in his own, and he wanted to do it his own way.
Yeah.
He's got a definite idea of how it should be done. Probably what's the focus here more right now, they've got a united front in terms of what they're opposing, which is the nuclear presence in Iran.
it's kind of interesting to watch the Republican whatever is going on there. I mean, some of that's pretty scary, but you don't know how things are supposed to develop. But
Where the divide occurs a lot, if I read it, American politics, where the divide occurs a lot is as to the settlements in Israel.
okay.
Obama is very much opposed to the settlements taking place, and peace won't come until they're stopped and destroyed, the settlements. Whereas some of the other parties think, well, just leave them alone, and that's the same divide that exists in Israel too. But like I say, now they've got this united front, against it's not about that anymore. It's about It's not a power that has a nuclear weapon.
Syria,
There's more uniformity than what is common.
Israel's still the focus point.
yeah.
Obama was not under fire for not supporting Israel. He was under fire for not following the same support that the Republicans had. Which he is a supporter.